Yes.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Terry from Parthenia, along with Larry Lipnick. And somewhere there is Beverly Owl and Roz Morley. And we're the musicians who could be here tonight. Our colleague Sherazad Pantaki, soprano, got a fabulous opportunity to go to Germany and sing an opera. So that's where she is tonight. She couldn't be here with us, but you'll see her soon on the video. And of course, our the founders of our feast are composer Frances White and the woman who invented this whole project, Wendy Steiner, who wrote the libretto and took the pictures in upon reflection on opera in 10 images. So I think we'll let Wendy kick it off. Thank you, Wendy.
Okay. Well, it's obviously a tremendous pleasure to be here talking to you tonight. And I wanted to say briefly where this project came from and what it is that you're actually going to be seeing tonight. So first of all, in 2014, I went to a performance of Schubert's Die Winterreise, which was very controversial at the time because William Kentridge, the South African artist, had accompanied the performance with projections of his own work. And people were angry that he had just kind of made a collage of all his work and presented that rather than trying to deliberately illustrate Schubert's work. But I couldn't understand why they were so upset, because it seemed to me that it was wonderful to see the concerns of a romantic artist like Schubert, who's concerned about his own impending death. He was only 31, but dying at the time. The death of nature in wintertime, lost love, any number of other concerns that are common, were common for romantic artists. And on the other hand, to see them connected to the concerns of contemporary artists like Kentridge, who shows us genocide and war and lost love too, and all kinds of concerns that we think of as being from another age. But the connection between them seemed to me what was so moving about that. So I sort of put that in my memory. And in the next few years, I started taking photographs, many of which I realized were contained reflections, reflections in glass, reflections in water, optical illusions of various kinds, and so on. And so when Frances and I started talking about making what we thought of at the time as a song cycle together, I remembered Schubert's song cycle, and there were these photographs, and I thought, well, what if I made a character who was a photographer and had taken these pictures, and she has in the recent past gone to see Schubert's Die Winterreise and comes away terribly moved by it, because it so happens that she's 31 years old too, and though she's not dying, she realizes that she is filled with the same kind of unhappiness as Schubert had. And she realizes as a result of this, what it is that has made her life, has lost the rosiness or taken the rosiness out of her life. And what it is that she's been trained as a woman in the arts to hide her emotions, to keep herself out of her artworks, and so not to make available to other people the kind of connection that she made with Schubert, and that presumably Kentridge and Schubert made with, or Kentridge made with Schubert, and so on. And so the situation of upon reflection is, and she decides upon reflection that she's just not going to keep doing things that way. And so we see her at her gallery opening with her photographs on the walls, talking to the guests, and she's explaining all this to them, and inviting them to find her in her work. So that's the premise for the piece. And then I got invited to be in an exhibition in the Venice Biennale, and so I wanted to export this work to Venice. And so Francis and I made an excerpt from the opera of about 20 minutes. It's actually about 23 minutes. And the rehearsal that you're going to see today is a rehearsal to make a soundtrack, to record a soundtrack the next day, which becomes the soundtrack for a hologram in which the soprano will appear in Venice in this room, surrounded by actual photographs on the wall, and singing the soundtrack, which will appear around her. So that's where we are. Oh, I can't hear you, Lisa.
Oh, there it is. All right. Thank you, Wendy. And Francis, you were going to say a few words.
Yeah. This, I've written for Parthenia before, but this piece has presented a lot of really unique challenges. I mean, first, there is the nature of exactly what it is. It is kind of a cross between a song cycle and an opera. And so there's this kind of interesting pull between the arias as individual entities and then the dramatic whole. Then there's the range of elements that go into it, which is kind of large. I mean, there's the whole Schubert angle, which you won't hear so much of in this. That doesn't really appear so much in the excerpt you hear tonight. There's the images, which are very complex, and they suggest kind of a wide range of references and feelings. And of course, then the text, which is not only a commentary on the images, but also sort of brings to life this character of this young artist that we're trying to create. So for my starting point, I would try to imagine her interior life, how she felt about her work, and with a particular awareness of her vulnerability, which I think is something as a creative artist we can all relate to, because, when you present a piece, you're sort of showing your deepest and most essential self, which is terrifying. Then I would immerse myself in the particular image and try to kind of tease out what it said to me sonically. So, for example, in one aria, which is called Red Pompeii, you'll see, among other things, the images of a goddess and a queen. That sparked in my imagination this thought of like, well, what if that goddess was somewhere far off, maybe far in the distance, singing? And what if that voice was actually Sherry's voice, the photographer's voice? So as if the photographer is a reflection of this goddess in some sense. There's another example is a photograph that is of a sculptor's studio. It's filled with representations of women as angels and saints. And the photographer speaks a bit lightly about this, but there's a definite dark side too. The way that the women are represented is, to me, somewhat disturbing. But by photographing them and by seeing them with a feminine gaze, the photographer is, I think, kind of trying to claim a female agency. And so it's this kind of thing, to me, gives it a lot of nuance. There's a kind of darkness there as well as light. So anyway, also, I'd just like to add that it's been such a joy, as always, to write for Parthenia and for Sherry. I had not written for Sherry before. Writing for viols and recorders is really extraordinarily difficult in many ways. A lot of the tricks you fall back on with modern instruments are not going to work with these. So you really have to be at the top of your game. But Parthenia and Sherry have just been so amazingly generous to like read through things for me, critique things, tell me when something doesn't work and how I might make it better. So it's just kind of been a composer's dream to work with these 5 people. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, obviously we love working with you. We're going to keep coming back for more. All right, so we're going to start the video now. And what this is a actual video of our rehearsal back in January. And we're going to stop and start it after each section and talk about it a little bit. And you'll get to see film of us rehearsing and discussing too. For example, in the first movement, 10 Skies, which we're going to play right now, we start to perform the piece and we only get about a minute into it when things go awry and we have to stop and rehearse and talk. And then you'll get to see a performance of the entire movement. So if the panelists now can turn off their cameras and mute themselves, we will share the opening movement of this opera.
Do you want to try it again, or
Yeah,
try a different
let's try it again.
arrangement?
What, cleft out? Yes, yes.
Do you have any comments?
I think it's a beautiful. I didn't think I did a very good job of crescendo. So here are.
And I'll try to give that. I'll try to give the skies.
10 is 2 beats,
Okay.
but 10 is a 2-beat.
I know, it's just gonna depend on how much breath I have.
I know, but I mean, what I want to do is time a nice crescendo
Right.
to get there, and I just didn't do a very good job. But I think I can do better.
If you lead us into the skies, then we'll be able to crescendo right as she's giving
If
us
I have
that.
safe
Yeah.
enough.
Oh.
Yeah.
Let's just do it again.
Okay.
I'm not being clear, am I?
No, it's just,
It's just short.
you're,
I think
you're,
it's fine.
you're giving a long give. And so we crescendo, and then we don't have any bow left for the actual skies. So.
And you want it to be at the end of the same bow, or you're going to sort of retake?
You
No, we have
both,
to
just I
retake.
have to.
We have to retake.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll try to be clear.
Thank you.
All right, are we back? Good. So that was the end of the first movement. Is it still playing?
Oh, yeah. Let me,
Here.
you know what it is? It's yes.
Great. Back up a little bit. There we go. So you had stopped the share?
Yes.
Yeah, you don't need
but
to
not
do
the-
that.
right.
We can just
Oh, okay.
pause it. Yeah. Anyway, here we are, figuring out our tech. Okay, so the next piece we play is called Sculpture Studio. And after we tune up a bit, you'll hear the performance of the whole movement. And then we'll go back and rehearse one particular bar. But yeah, I think we'll stop and talk a little bit before that rehearsal. Anyway, now we can play the Sculpture Studio. And panelists, you can stop your cameras.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Wow, Larry and I were just saying that sounds so beautiful. Francis, it's such a pretty piece.
Oh, well, thank you. I realized as I was listening, I forgot to mention at the beginning that there is pre-recorded sound in this piece.
Right.
Those low tones that you heard at the end, those are they actually come from the viols. They're processed viol sounds, and those they serve multiple functions, I think, emotionally and sonically, but also a very practical function in the complete piece, because as I was saying, there are particular challenges about writing for these instruments. And the fact of the matter is that the viols need to tune, like Lisa, you were saying, like every 20 minutes, probably. And so you don't want the whole piece to come to a screeching halt. So I have to find ways that I can musically make things that they can tune to. So, you know, this is an ongoing saga. We'll see how I make it happen.
Yeah, we'll see if it works.
I have a question for you, Francis. In the live performance,
Yeah.
will your audio be interactive?
It will. In fact, my current project is I am something I'm not looking forward to, but I'm going to have to learn how to use Max, because I tried to use like this DJ software, but you know, it tries to do things for you like sync to a beat and tune this track to match that track, which I do not want. So, but my friend Mari Kimura actually made these wonderful tutorial videos about Max, and watching them, it looks like it's going to do everything I need it to do for this piece. So that's my next adventure, learning Max.
Oh boy.
So essentially in the performance, you will be a sixth performer.
I will.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
One thing I forgot to say at the beginning is our listeners should write any questions in the Q&A button, and because we're going to take your questions at the end of our presentation. Yeah. So did anybody else want to say something, or shall we continue?
I have a follow-up question from Larry's question. If you're going to be a sixth performer, Francis, will you be visible? Will you be one of us in a circle with the Viols and Sherry?
I lean against doing so, just because I think, you know, whenever I see things like that, to an audience, it's like, why is she reading her email? I mean, like, they can't tell what you're doing. It doesn't look like you're performing. You're just like, you know. So my inclination is I should not be present. I mean, we can discuss this as we get closer to it, but my inclination is no.
Okay.
Okay. So our next segment now, you get to see a professional musician rehearsal process. There was one bar back in the movement we just listened to where we really weren't lining up, and we were continually having trouble making it right, and we solve it, and you get to see us do it.
Three, four.
That's where it is. That's where it goes awry, right there. Let's back it up a little bit.
Okay.
How about 236?
236 here.
Three.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
early.
That was after
Because I thought I was late. So I overcompensated.
Yeah.
You know what will help?
What?
If you think of your B flat and A in 243 with Sherry's word saints.
Yeah, we had it together.
That's where you have to be together on saints.
Wait,
It looks like
so,
it's part of a longer phrase for
so
you.
what's the word in 243?
Saints.
It's just
It's
saints.
broken up into two.
2 half notes.
Saints.
No,
Say. Oh, okay.
And I think that will help.
Because I'm
anchor
trying
you.
to hear the change in the middle, but I'm not going to hear that. 'cause it's
But
blurry.
again, like, whatever happens, even if that bar goes funny, I'm listening to Lisa's B5.
Five, one.
Okay.
So whatever she does, I'm gonna.
Okay.
That's right. If I'm wrong, that's still
Do you want to
five.
go
Still
from,
fine.
do that one
Go
more
with
time?
That would be great.
Same
From
place, 236?
236.
Thank you.
3, 4. Oh, I see what's happening. You're coming in too soon. Your 243, the way you're interpreting it, is
Okay.
sooner than
I'm
Roz
literally
is playing.
Counting every single beat.
I know, but Roz is a little approximato
Okay.
But
in 242. So we
No,
just
I'm
have
gonna,
to,
I'm gonna listen for that.
So,
yeah.
Whatever you do.
Approximato, right?
but 243 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But when you say, it sounds to me like you're going say instead of
No, no,
say.
I've been doing.
I'm hearing
It's
you
just the way it
coming
comes in. Yeah, we'll try it again.
236? See what
Okay, one more
my
time.
approximato Aldrin was.
3.
Good, I think we got it right. All right. Sometimes it just takes a while to hear what all's going on in a complicated piece of music, right? Okay, their next piece in the selection is called Red Pompeii. And here the music gets a lot more challenging for us. We were not able to perform a complete take of this piece, but throughout our rehearsal, we played enough of it that our videographer put it together for you. So why don't we watch, let's see here. Oh, I see. What we do here is we play a section, and then we just stop and have a detailed rehearsal, and then we perform the whole song for you. So you get to watch all of that now.
I just want to mention, you've probably noticed, but the text that Sherry is singing is projected. So you can follow the text if you look behind at the projection. Yes, so keep that in mind.
And look at me Go figure. Right there.
Did you just go from that?
Pick up to 374.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know we're not trying to play it, but you need to kind of give that to me a little better, both of
Yeah.
those entrances.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
sure where the first one falls in 379.
I'm not so sure it really matters.
Okay.
If you just
Okay.
give us a 2, 3,
Okay.
yeah, in both places.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, same thing.
That first one.
Beverly's gonna give them both those entrances to us. If that's okay, Francis?
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
loved 179.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems rest of the TV.
It's
right?
very,
Yeah,
very much
yeah.
so. No, that's perfect.
Well, and in 380, I'm basically, since we decided to make those, interpolations, I'm sort of waiting for da 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 da.
Yeah.
Like I'm not necessarily counting the end of that exactly in time into the next bar.
Right.
But then once I say, oh goddess, da 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 da.
Oh,
The minute I've said des in 380, you can,
Is it,
because that is,
Since I've got the
together.
5s in 380, can I get that one?
sure.
Okay. So Beverly gives 379, and Roz gives 380.
Yeah, it would be more dramatic that way.
yeah.
Oh, Sherry, what beat do you come in on in 375?
Let me see this one.
And a 4.
That's so cool.
Is this helpful?
Well, he's got it really big.
Oh, God, stop up.
The bar before that? Oh, I see, your score is that, yeah, now go to 380. Yes.
so our part's a rehearsal, there's me.
And Beverly, in 382, I don't know if you were kind of waiting for me to finish my note, but
Yeah.
technically you come in with, like,
Okay.
I'm
just
still
hanging out.
holding,
Okay.
and you come in on top
Got
of that.
it.
Oh,
Yeah, we can make it kind of inert. It's nice when Sherry's still holding the note.
Right.
You're talking about 179, right?
no, I'm talking about
Oh.
382.
382.
And
yeah.
Beverly, 382, could that be an ostentatious piano? Like
Wow.
the first
Yeah.
time that we have heard a piano in the whole piece, sort of thing? It'd be
Yeah,
so-
like a stage whisper,
Yeah.
exaggeratedly. It's very Sturm und Drang.
It is.
I guess it goes with the Schubert. Yes, it's like the Earl King. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, just
Start
right.
in the middle of our 1, 2.
Wow, the ending of that one always gets me. Yeah. All right, so our next and final musical segment is called Times Square Taxi. We will see a short rehearsal first, and then we'll perform the whole movement. And after that, we'll come back and take your questions, unless any of the other panelists want to say something right now. We will carry on with Times Square Taxi.
It's not so converged.
Am I doing something weird?
No, I think we're not
Something
quite
around
getting it.
47, 48.
Yeah.
Do we want to just have a little rehearsal from that again? That's just such a hard transition.
Mm-hmm. Maybe just starting right on 469.
469, okay. So just us, or just instruments?
Well, anybody wants to do it.
No, just thinking, letting you
No,
rest
it's up
if
to
you
you.
want to, yeah.
Okay, with me then?
Yeah, I think that's.
Whatever you want to do. I wanted to let you rest if you wanted to.
And at this point, it's all the
Okay.
same. Oh, that's the same.
Yeah.
Okay, 2, 3.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't realize there.
Yeah.
Well, that was right. That was good.
I thought it was right.
Do you want to try
Did
to
you feel right?
do it?
What I am trying to say.
Here we are. Congratulations, Francis and Wendy.
Well,
Congratulations.
thank you.
And Carrie, wherever you are.
Yes.
Our Zoom master is asking if he wants to let attendees speak, and I think that's okay. We can take questions that way. Oh, Ruth Saib, you want to read it?
Yes, Ruth Saib is asking about the integration of recorder and viols, and perhaps Wendy and Francis could speak to that. And I have something I want to say from the performer's standpoint.
Well, I'm not sure exactly what the
Well,
issue.
the choice, well, we're generally a viol consort. We do mix recorders and viols.
Yes.
But for this particular piece, did you have a concept for how you would integrate the recorder?
I felt very strongly that in a way the recorder has a slightly different relationship with the voice than the viols do. And I sort of wanted that different kind of relationship. Then also it's part of it is just kind of a sonic thing. For example, at the end of the sculpture studio where the recorder does that sort of melisma type stuff, I wanted to open it up to that kind of sound. And yeah, and also a lot of it was just purely sonic, just to have that sound of the recorder.
Well,
go ahead, Wendy.
Well, also since there's so much reflecting and echoing and doubling and so on that goes on, and of course, all the musical decisions were up to Francis, but I was really glad that the recorders were there, because I think of the recorder and the voice as being sort of analogs to each other in a special way, and the breath and all that. And so I sort of imagined Sherry and Larry as being kind of paired up in this way, with the viols doing something else.
Yeah, and from my point of view, the viols play with great expressivity and shape, and there is a subtle vibrato, but the recorder can use as much vibrato as a voice, and there were times when I felt like I was a voice. So that melismatic passage that you mentioned, Francis, I felt more tuned with the voice, and then I could add more vibrato or mirror Sherry. Other places I felt I was functioning more as a viol, or providing rhythm or a harmonic dovetailing with the viols. So that was sort of an interesting, and listening to it now, to the choices that I was making, was kind of fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And also maybe you could speak a little bit to incorporating a harp into it.
Oh,
there's so much arpeggiation in your music anyway, which is so beautiful. And then hearing the harp added a whole other layer.
Yeah, it definitely went with the arpeggiation, but also I thought of it, I wanted the sort of voice of this ancient goddess, it's accompanying her, and it sort of puts her in this different space, this different sonic space that is related and akin, but it definitely has very much its own sound. So yeah, that was what I was sort of thinking. I mean, I always make it sound like I'm thinking of, a lot of it is you're like, wow, that's the way it should be, and you don't even know why.
Well, Francis, you'll love this. One of our comments, very observant, perceptive, said that there were times when the recorder had a shakuhachi like sound. I know bending pitches, and I know that maybe you could talk about that a little bit in your inspiration.
Well, you know, I study shakuhachi, and everything I do musically is very much inflected by that. And yeah, that was in my mind with the recorder, that I wanted to bring some of that world to the recorder. And I felt like, you know, that there is a commonality between the two instruments in a way, maybe more so than you would find between shakuhachi and a modern flute, just sonically, you know. But yeah, it was very much that influences everything I do in all my music, which might not seem like a direct translation with viols, but.
I have a question for Larry and Francis. Larry, how many different sizes of recorders did you play in this piece? And Francis, were you writing with the different sizes of recorders with different colors in mind, or were you just thinking of how you were going to cover different ranges?
Well, I guess we went from soprano recorder to a tenor. So a couple of octaves for that. And there are times it's interesting because when I'm playing tenor, I'm in the soprano range, but the recorder sounds an octave higher. So when I'm playing a soprano, I'm an octave higher. So, Francis, did you have any particular aesthetic in mind when you went from one octave to another?
Well, a lot of it was just, you know, and I remember you and I discussing this, and you were pointing out, well, you know, you have to keep in mind that although there are overlaps, like a tenor playing high, you know, that's going to be a very different sound than the alto playing the same note, you know, because it's like a singer, you know. So that was very much in my mind. Certainly it was in my mind expanding the range, because that is one of the great challenges in writing for viols. Is it is, well, in voices too, it is a relatively restricted range, and the recorders open that up. I'm hoping that I have one more aria to write, the harbor one. I'm hoping that can be for bass recorder, but I don't know yet. I would love to incorporate bass recorder. I have to see what the piece wants to do. I have to see what the piece wants to do. You know.
Fabulous.
Francis, there are great basses and contrabasses.
We have another question for Francis. How did you find the length of the viol bows affecting your writing and phrasing and things that make your style? Like, is there anything about limitations of the viol bow or the way we use our bows?
Well, I mean, I try to have an awareness of it when I'm writing. I don't know that, I mean, it would change the way I might write a passage, an individual passage. I don't know that it would influence like a melodic idea necessarily, but particularly like in some of that kind of barcarolle type stuff, you know, I was aware of it in that. And so, yeah, it's kind of more something that you kind of try to keep in mind. I don't think of it as a limitation exactly. It's just more of an awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. Pre-recorded parts. We have another question. And starting a playback at a specific time, some of it will, I imagine, as you said earlier, will be interactive, but are there other sections that you have that are pre-recorded and that will be woven into, you know, embedded in the score to start at a particular time?
Well, for the most part, I'm working, well, okay, so in Red Pompeii, I have to cue the harp chords, and it's like chord, and I have to cue each one. So that's kind of interactive, if you will. I should mention, I'm not creating any sound in real time. I'm basically just triggering sound files, pre-created sound files. And some of those are longer chunks than others. In the movements that you heard, I'm really doing all the coordinating with the musicians, although Sherry kind of has to coordinate with her own pre-recorded voice with the vocalises. But there's at least one movement that you didn't hear tonight, one aria, where I'm dealing with bigger chunks of sound, and that might have more sort of issues with coordination. Although from what I understand with Max, I have some control over how fast these things play. So I'll be able to dicker that some. But yeah, so it's, for the most part, it's me triggering sound files, if that kind of covers what you're asking.
And she also wants to know, do the musicians hear the pre-recorded parts in real time? And yeah, we're hearing them in the room, right? Except some of them you layered in for this recording.
For recording, in live performance, the musicians absolutely will hear everything. When you're recording, I generally prefer to mix in the electronic sound afterwards, because, you know, then you can kind of cheat with balance and, you know, dicker things a little bit. Plus, the fact of the matter is, an air mic recording electronic sound, it never really sounds that great. So it'll sound better if you mix it in after the fact for a recording. In a real performance, you know, the sound is in the air with the instruments and it can sound great, you know, if it's a good space and you've engineered it right.
Wendy, could you?
One of the cool things I think about the playing with the pre-recorded sounds is that sometimes they enter at such a volume that you don't notice them until they feel like part of the sound of the viol consort until the volume comes up to the point, or until we stop playing and hear it. And that's often how we use each other's sound within the concert when there's no electronic sound. So that's a pretty wonderful aspect of the electronic track. Yes. Which I think is something that you understand, Francis, which makes it so great for us to play with it.
So another question is about the staging of it live. So the way we recorded it won't be the way we actually perform it, will it? Wendy, do you have
ideas?
I have ideas, but we need a director. But so the ideal setting would be a gallery with white walls and big images up. And I had imagined it originally as having all the images as projections, because of course they're hard to see, the images are hard to see at real life size, but they would only come on when the singer or the photographer was singing about them. And I think that will require something like 10 projectors for 10 images. So that would be a very complicated structure for that, but I'm sure there are other ways of doing this, and we just have to find, and also controlling the light during the projections and for the musicians and all that is really complicated. So we'll need a good technician working with us.
Can you just say a few words about the making of the hologram, and if we will get to see it here? Or any other venue.
It's been hell.
Can it be videoed so that you can experience it?
What is amazing about a hologram is that it is a visual event that happens in front of you the way any of us happen in front of each other, you know, as visual events. Yes. Well, I mean, it'll look sort of filmy and a little bit mystical and all that, and the focus may not be so great, so that even more so. So we can do stills, and I'm sure I can do some video of the installation in Venice, and I will certainly send that to you. So the making of, to make a hologram, you make a video, basically. And what you make a video of in this case was Sherry standing in a space that was entirely black. It had a black curtain behind it. And on the curtain, we taped up with black tape paper copies of reproductions of some of the photographs that we were going to be using, which means that that in Venice, the hologram will contain virtual images, which in the room will be there actually. So more of this reflection and just weirdness that we're doubling, all that kind of stuff that we're doing. So there's Sherry standing there, and we played the soundtrack, and she lip synced to it and acted. And she's marvelous. I mean, she's marvelous to look at. And of course, there's a great big tripod and with a camera out of the range of the thing. And so you make this, and we stuck in the equivalent of surtitles, but they're the same kind of blocks of text that you might have seen on the projections in the video of the rehearsal, because I didn't want it, it would make it too weird to have words coming up like surtitles. So instead we have surtitles, which are also holograms, you know, sort of words standing there like blocks of lyrics. Sherry, the words, and then this virtual picture behind her.
Wendy, will people in the room of the installation be able to sort of walk through the hologram, or will people be?
Okay, so you make a video to make a hologram, but a video is obviously not a hologram. So what happens is, above where the hologram is going to appear, hidden away is a very strong projector and a movie screen that is parallel to the floor. The projector projects the image onto the movie screen, right? And it's inverted left to right, so that when the image is reflected in a plexiglass sheet that runs from floor to that screen at a 45-degree angle, it gets turned around and sort of brought to life and turns into a hologram. And all I mean, I express it with all the naivety of somebody who hasn't got a clue, you know. I just know that what happens, because I had to draw the apparatus for the installers, you know. I mean, I made diagrams. I'll show you them. They're very impressive, but I haven't got a clue about how it happens. So. So the people in the thing, so what you'll see physically when you, the visitors will be kept back with a little string or, you know, ribbon. And what they'll see in front of them, if they could see, but everything's going to be black, is a plexiglass sheet rising at a 45-degree angle from the floor to about 6 feet on the back wall. And above that is this apparatus of the screen with the projector above it, but it's all hidden away. And all around them are these aluminum prints of the 10 photographs.
We have one more question, and I'll read it. Wendy, you've written lots on the sister arts of painting and poetry. In Upon Reflection, you are crafting within many other arts, sculpture, music, photography, whether or not we gender them as sisters. Could you reflect on how you have moved from your deeply considered critical writings to a complex art form that you have yourself?
Goodness.
That's fabulous.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. In fact, I mean, there's nothing more consistent than what I'm thinking I'm saying in this piece, and what I've been writing for the last God knows how many decades in terms of my theories. That just as with the Kindred Schubert connection, or the young photographer and Schubert, what we value about art is what we perceive as valuable and beautiful is our response to something, to be sure, but it's a response that shows us responding, that shows us something valuable, our ability to respond, for one thing, and shows us something interesting about our response to ourselves. And so there's all this interactivity involved in looking at art, and self-knowledge that arises in the course. And it's not just, I know I like this, and but a kind of to know your emotions and to know the things that move you, the deep things that move you. And sometimes you don't know them until you have an experience with art that makes you feel that way. So that's what that photographer discovered at a very young age. It took me much longer than 31 to learn all that. And her invitation to to her viewers to find her in her work is what we all send out when we make art or perform art. It's all the same kind of thing. It's sort of know me, but know me by responding to something that I've made or I love or I care about. It's that kind of thing.
Wow.
Oh, and this is from Alice Shields. I just wanted to congratulate Elizabeth and everyone involved. This is a lovely piece with excellent writing for the voice, delicious harmonies, and I look forward to seeing the premiere. Yeah, the
So
chat
sweet.
got blocked. Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Alice.
Thank you.
All right. I think that we should probably say goodnight, and we really appreciate all your comments and for watching this. We have recorded the webinar. We'll edit it lightly and put it on YouTube, and you can send if you want the link, it'll be there on our YouTube channel in the public area. So Parthenia Viols on YouTube. Just look next week or so and you'll find it if you want to tell your friends about it. But thank you so much for supporting this new work. And we love hearing your responses to art, right, Wendy? All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Good night. Oh, thank you to Asaf Blasberg, our
Yes.
Zoom master, for
Yes.
making all this
Yes.
possible, and for editing the beautiful video.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Night.
Bye.